that's the opportunity for leaders, right? It's the duty of leadership, of good leaders. It's the humanistic component, right? It's the empathetic component, empathic component, all of those things. But it's about building the room, right? I call it like, I talk about it like being the room after the room. We,
Right.
how are you building the room? How are you showing up so that it is safe and comfortable for people that are, to show up in that room, that they don't
Right.
feel like they have to conform or shift? How are you doing, or having to fit in a specific way? How are you building the room that welcomes everyone's perspective, everybody's thought, everybody how
Right.
they feel like they're showing up in their best light? And when you lead in that way, when you show up in that way with who you are versus all, just not just what you do, but who you are, when you're showing up leader in that way, people gravitate toward that. When you they and like you said, people can call BS. They can see when you're showing up authentic versus not. When it's performative, people, it doesn't take very long for people to see right through that. So,
Right.
but if you are showing up and your true light, who you really are, and building the room, and the room is shaping around that, people feel more comfortable and invited to step into that space. So it's again, unlearning. It's unlearning of these default ways of thinking and doing and being. But yeah, how do we do that? How do we do it? How is the reframe?
Yeah.
So,
And
so
it's
I
hard
don't,
work. Yeah.
yeah. Well, it can, it definitely can be. There's a guy, he's a guy. There's a man, his name is Walter Mercado. He's since rest in peace, Walter Mercado, but he was famous on like Latin American TV. He was an astronomer. And he would come on and full makeup. He had these elaborate capes that he would wear. And, this is a very like macho like culture. And he would come in again, the feathered hair, just so he's a vibe. Walter Mercado is a whole vibe. And so he would do like the horoscopes. And then at the end, he'd say, and I'm leaving you with con mucho, 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 mucho amor. Like I'm leaving you with so much love. So there's a documentary on Netflix about him. And people would ask him, how do you prepare to do Walter Mercado? How do you prepare to do like your thing? And he says, I never have to rehearse to be myself. And I love that phrase so much. And I think what happens with this executive presence, right? This idea of executive presence is that people think that there's this box that they must fit in if they're going to be respected, if they're going to be valued, if they're going to be followed, or whatever it is. And I think that if we can break that box wide open and say, come as yourself, right? Come as yourself and be yourself with the good, the bad, the ugly, and you can show that, then people will buy into that and then we'll give them that space to be themselves as well. And imagine what we could all accomplish if we could remove that weight of having to conform to
Mhm.
some standard that has nothing to do with it. What is it that we're all trying to do?
Right. Yeah. And it has to be more than just lip service. It can't
Right.
be you telling me that, because I'm going to tell you, if you would have said to me uh 12 months ago,
Yeah.
show up in your authentic self, who you are, Koi, show up to that meeting at that company that you were working for 12 months ago. Show up in your braids. Show up just as
Yeah.
you are right now, in your authentic self, in your authentic voice. Like all of that, I would have been like, yeah, that sounds really good, but no, because this is what how I'm going to be viewed. This is what I'm how I'm going to be perceived. This
Right.
is what people think about this. And nope. And I don't want any part of that, because I'm still showing up not as who I am, but what I do and how I want to be perceived of what I do
Right.
and where I'm going in this ladder that I'm climbing and these titles that I'm chasing. I'm still talking about what I do. So nope, I can't show up who I am.
Yeah.
No, you just
Yeah.
can't. So it has to be more than just saying that. It has to be
Right.
lived in how you are showing up, leader, organization, executives, how you are reframing job descriptions, how are you
Right.
framing performance reviews? Is it in your KPIs? I mean, it needs to be more than just the lip service and the talk. I got to see it in what you're
Right.
doing. I got to
Right.
see it in that as well. And so I really encourage organizations and leaders that I work with to, it's great that you're saying that to your people. I'm not believing it. I'm not trusted. I've heard it many, many times too. If there were core values, and when they show up as your core values, that's great. I love to see it on a paper. I love to see it on your website. How is it really in your leadership? How does it really show up? Where is it showing up? Show me where it shows up. Where is it a business
Right.
imperative? Because I need that to be a business
Right.
imperative. If that's what you're telling
Right.
me to do, and I'm supposed to feel safe and comfortable in doing that and living in my authenticity and my truth, and I can show up this way and still be promoted, still be valued, still get my raises, still be measured. I want to see that's a business imperative. I don't just want to see it as a core value or things that you care about or things that you're telling me, boss, that I can do. No, I need to see where your executive leadership where they promote that and they celebrate that as well and they put that in writing. I want to see that. I think that
And it's rewarded.
and it's rewarded.
And it's rewarded.
Mhm.
And
Well,
that's the part, right? That's the part.
Yeah.
I think it just goes to that question, I mean, what are your expectations and where do they come from?
Hmm.
Right. And if it just comes from, well, this is how we've always done things. Okay, so
Hmm.
how's that working for you? Right.
Hmm.
So, and, understanding your folks, like you mentioned, right? So getting to know your folks, getting to know what makes them tick, recognizing not everyone is, has the same idea of fairness, of respect, of ambition, right? Some
Hmm.
folks' ambition is to rise to the top of the corporate ladder. Some other folks' ambition is they're very happy with where they are in this space and they're very satisfied and motivated to do it every day. And if you don't think that that's ambitious, well, then, you're probably, you're invalidating that person. Right. And
Absolutely.
so how do we help people feel authentic and validated in who they are, that they're in a place where
Hmm.
it's not even the idea of feeling safe, right? Because I mean, people can create safe places, right? But how do we belong, right? When we talk about, interacting with people, there's people in your life. I'm sure there's people in Tiff's and I's life, that we tolerate, that we put up with. Then we see them, oh, that's nice, and how do we keep it at a minimum so we don't have to interact with them too much, right? I have
Hmm.
people in my life right now where I like them to be able to do what they need to do and not get any deeper because then it would go into a different place, right? Family members, people I work with, handymen, different things like that. But how do we get to that place of belonging where people feel like they are not just in the right place, but they're with the right people,
Hmm.
right? And so, I created this, or me and T. Frizzell, another colleague of mine, we created this tolerance to belonging model. It talks about the idea of what it feels to be tolerated as opposed to appreciated. And appreciation is, different months, cultural exchange, and
Hmm.
having, potlucks, cultural potlucks bring, those, oh, I really like, oh, I like that music, blah, blah, blah. All right. Inclusion means you have a voice at the table, you can speak up. Belonging means that when your voice is heard, it's not judged as right or wrong. It just is. Right. So that, and then you're invited back to the table and it's not even you're invited back to the table. You have a seat at the table that has your name on the back of it with your, that it's yours. And I think
Hmm.
that's such a huge thing for a lot of folks. That's why I really appreciate the idea of belonging being something past the I when we talk about DEI. First of all, I hate acronyms, right? I'm not an acronym person, right? But what it means to include, but not just include somebody, but to belong, have them feel like they belong and like they're in the right place to be who they are and to be able to express themselves in a way without prejudice or judgment, right? But you know, that's the challenge that I see with a lot of folks, just they don't trust it. They don't trust. And how often do people get to that idea of belonging?
Right. I guess that's my question because what I do love about the International Coaching Federation, um, for our DEI kind of board, we added B, belonging. And we're
Mm,
really zeroing in on not just inclusion, moving past inclusion to belonging. What is the difference there? How do you create a space for folks to feel like they belong? But how do I need to feel and show up? What about me? How am I stepping into my power? Not palatability, my power to feel like I belong. How am I helping shape this room so that I belong at this table? Not one that you built for me, right? But one that I contributed to. So I feel like that's the difference between inclusion. I've always been included, right? I've done the things to be included, but I haven't always felt like I've belonged. in that room, at that table, in that space that I've been included in, right?
Mhm.
So,
Mhm.
how do I feel like I now belong? I'm showing up in who I am, I'm showing up in my power, and I'm not concerned about being palatable. This room doesn't
Mhm.
require me to be palatable, right? I can show up in my braids, I can show up how I feel and how I look and how I feel most comfortable. As an introvert, right? I can show up as coy. And that is not only accepted, recognized, but celebrated. And that's where I feel like I belong. And those are the rooms. That's how we need to shape and shift those types of rooms. People need to contribute to the shaping and the shifting of that room as well.
Yeah. It has to go beyond fitting in because
Mhm.
that's the minimizing of yourself
Yep.
to conform to. It's the belonging. And um I think that's just the most generous gift that we can give people is to allow them that space to be their full self. But I also will say, I just want to give the other side of this. You can allow people to show up as their whole selves. That doesn't mean you have to like them. Okay, I just I have to throw that out there, but it doesn't always have to be a good match. This is not about everybody holding hands and singing Kumbaya. You can allow people to be their authentic selves, and you don't have to always enjoy their presence. You may have those people in your life that still get to show up as their whole selves, and you can say, "I'm going to deal with them with a grain of salt. I'm gonna, engage with them in the way that I need to engage with them to keep things professional and whatever it is. But they still have the right to exist in their whole authenticity just as much as I do. So we can adapt to the versions of ourselves that's needed without being fake and phony. Like I
Right.
can work with you professionally, but I still have to accept your authenticity as much as I want mine to be done as well.
Hmm.
But we don't have to all love each other.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah,
We
for
still
me,
have to have good professional relationships. We still have
Absolutely.
to be professional, but we don't have to love each other for sure.
for me, I think it just boils down not to just because who you are is who you are. If you want anime pictures all through your cubicle, cool, right? If whatever, I care less. It's how you land on other people and how it affects the way
Right.
that we
Hmm.
interact. That's a conversation to have. So and I mean, there are some expectations that are non-negotiables, right? But that's the problem. People have different definitions of those. I mean, just think about the idea of being on time. Different organizations that people come from have different definitions of what it means to be on time. Some folks, if you're 5 minutes early, you're late, right? And other people, hey, I can be 6 minutes late, because I worked at Burlington or I worked at Costco and I can clock in at that like I used to and my daughter does now, right? So you can be there at 9:06 if your shift starts at 9 as long and you can be on time. Then other folks, oh, I got here at 9 o'clock. I didn't log in until 9:20, but hey, I put my bag down and went and socialized and did my thing, right? And if that's okay in your office, then that's cool. But just recognizing that people have those different definitions and that they're not right or wrong, they're just different. And if there are specific needs to be able to manage, when I worked for the county, I knew I had to be there on time because we had to close at 5 o'clock. There was no overtime. There was no people working after 5 o'clock. So I had to work my shift. Right. So just that's how it is. And your paycheck, that's what, but in terms of how I express myself and who I am to what I do, that's definitely something that I want to welcome. It's like I said, when it affects the group and other people, and it's something that um, is in a negative or judgy way, that's when I feel like I have to intervene on those situations.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
Oh, so Coy, we always have our top five every every episode. And when we have guests, we ask them for their top five, right? So um, the top five I was going to ask you for your top five resources for um, your work in coaching and creating equitable and belonging spaces. So
Hmm.
what are some resources that you would recommend for our listeners?
Interesting. I love that. and I have so many. But now in the moment, what I want to say is the first thing is I'm going to go back to where we began this conversation. Who are you versus what you do? What is your 6 word story? I encourage everyone to draft that. And it may not be the same story you tell to everyone you meet. Like I said, I have several. But it all comes back down to who I am, right? And living in my truth, right? So, Tiff, you said you had a couple. You're the, you're a whole vibe, but also like the hot mess out of the
Hot
ashes
mess
or
in the
whatever.
dumpster fire. Hot mess
Yeah,
in the dumpster fire.
whatever fits the moment. All right, it's who I am, right? So I encourage folks to really think about that. That begins to talk about who you are. Of course, people want to know what you do, right? Of course, that matters what you do, what you bring, all those things. But let's start with who we are, living in our truth, who we really are, how we want to show up, how we want to present, what we want people to know about us. What do you want people to take away from that first interaction with you? Because honestly, people aren't going to remember much more after what you say after those first 5, 10 seconds anyway. They're just not. What are the most impactful things you want someone to know about you from your very first interaction? Create your 6 word story. Um, I really encourage people, if I'm thinking about 5 things outside of that, I really want to encourage people to think about the study of 5 things. The first thing is study power. Who holds it? Who lacks it? Where is the surplus? Where is the opportunity? Do you have it? Do you not? Are you living in a place of choice, privilege, or circumstance? Really think about that. The next thing is language. Inclusive language, and like you mentioned before, language and choosing the right words and things like that is so important. And inclusive language, we hear a lot about that, but I really want to encourage people to really study language, what you're saying, how it lands. History, you mentioned, Carl, that you are a history buff. People study history. History repeats itself, things come back around, it impacts or informs what is happening now. Really get really close to history. Proximity. We talked a lot about proximity. I encourage people to get proximate. Get proximate. Go study Brian Stevenson and his proximity reports and the Equal Justice Initiative and the work that he's doing there. I encourage people to really dive into resources around getting proximate, putting that into your life, into your practice in some way. Once a week, figure out a way to get proximate, whether it's in a drive-through line, a grocery store, at your kid's school, a teacher that you hadn't connected with. I mean, whatever it is, a coworker who you see in the break room that you've never spoke to, whatever it is, get outside of you and get into someone else. Get proximate. It's not all about you. Get outside of you and get into someone else. Um, and then I think what I just really love is there's a whole, like we talked about before, like we're coaches, right? And so one of the biggest tenets of coaching or having a coach approach or that mindset is being curious, right? But moving past being curious, right? Is that curiosity is like, that need to know. Like I need to know, I need to understand. I'm so curious. I want to know about you. Moving past that need to know to more of like the right? Because that is really that's being present. That's really understanding their experience, their journey. Why are you here? How are you here? I want to be a part of that. That's really understanding the awe of it. Not just being curious about it, but it's really wonder and awe. So I really want to encourage folks to kind of, if we think about ways to sharpen your inclusive coaching or how to be more inclusive in your workplace, how to be a more inclusive leader when you're thinking about practices. There's a tons of tools, tons of methodologies, tons of resources. But if you kind of focus in on those 5 areas of really assessing power, language, history, proximity, and awe, I think those are the main ingredients to really help with your inclusivity and leading to helping others feel like that belonging, which I think is the really big piece that a lot of organizations are missing. So that would be what I would offer.
I love it. And that, Coy, is why we wanted you on the podcast. All of that. Okay. because this is, I mean, it's such a great message. I'm thinking about all of these things right now, right? I've been leaning in on being curious for so long, but I want to be odd now. I really do. And I'm going to see what it's going to take for me to get to that. And I think what I'm hearing when I'm hearing you, what it's making like my brain do, I'm genuinely curious about other people, but I think even more, I want people to be curious about themselves.
Mm,
Like I want to be so interested that they're gonna dive real deep and try to what's their vibe,
mm.
right? I want them to really think because I'm so interested in who they are that they're going to be interested in who they are, and I think that might be my next goal. So thank you for opening that little spot up open in my brain for me. I love that.
Hey, I'm here
Yeah.
to inspire, right? I inspire to live an inspired life. That's
You,
what I that's why Koi shows up.
you've
Yeah.
done it. You've done it. You came, you saw, you conquered, Koi, because I'm feeling very inspired right now, for sure.
Thank
And
you.
and it made me think about that idea of, being curious and having the aha, and what you just talked about, Tiff, how many people have had a moment about themselves,
Mm,
right? And so just being able to be still for a minute, be reflective, think about, you know, the moves that I made, the actions that I took, the responses that I have from other people, you know, is it how am I landing on somebody else? Right? How am I
mhm,
impacting their responses to things? It's not always other people, right? But then also where does that come from? Where did I, where did I learn that from a boss? Did I learn that from my dad, right? Did I learn that from, somebody else, or just maybe experience in life, so, you know,
mhm,
who am I and what is it that, for a lot of folks, that's a scary place to dive, right? To go into their own selves. And some folks never do it their entire lives. They go their life just living their life based off of what other people expect of them. And, and Jung said, like you said, Coy, you're at that point now where you show up, you're you, you know, Jung says, we really get to know ourselves. He's the kind of the father of the piece of where we got the Myers-Briggs and the disc and things like that. And he said, because people say, well, my Myers-Briggs changed, from college. Does your personality change? I said, well, Jung says your personality doesn't change. Your perception of your personality changes,
mm,
right? And so society has all these pressures and they put them on you. And, you have your parents, you have to live up to those expectations. Your friend group, you have to live up to those expectations. Your significant others, your bosses, your children, do you live up to a certain expectation that you want your children to see you as that may not necessarily be 100% who you are, your authentic self. And then he said, when we get to our mid 40s, early 50s, we stop caring about what other people think and we start focusing
mm.
on what makes us us. And some folks get it earlier. Some folks, like I said, go their whole life where they haven't really done that work. And so I love what you're saying. Just think about where you are in that space. Where does your power come from? If you have any, and if you don't think that you have any, dig a little deeper. Where does your power come from? Right. And, and even if it comes from your circumstance, what is that power that you have to be able to regulate that circumstance and be able to alter
Mhm.
what it is that you do. And I just love it. It's very cool. So, and we really appreciate you, Coy. Thank you for, and we have one more thing. We have our question of the week.
Oh,
Well, I don't know, Tiff, do you have any hot tips? Tiff has some hot tips for
I
us
don't have
sometimes.
any hot tips. I'm still processing everything that, because this is important to me. Again, coming from a place of some privilege, I I'm always considering how do I be a good ally, right? How do I share what I get to experience? How do I make sure that's available for everyone? Because it's unlimited. There's not scarcity when it comes to people being allowed to be themselves. There's no scarcity in experience. There's no scarcity in like why are we hoarding it? Why does one group or a few groups get to hold all of the power at everyone else's expense? I'm always thinking, how do I be a good ally? And I'm processing all of this still.
Very
So
cool. I
don't
love
be
it. So
putting me on
that's
the
a hot
spot,
tip.
Carl.
How can you be a better ally? I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
That-
Yeah.
and
Okay.
it takes some time. I got to think about that, but I'll come up with a solution for sure.
Okay. And so the last question I have, because we're in November,
It's always
and
random.
Tiff just had her Fakesgiving, and I'll
Fakesgiving.
let her
It's a fake
explain that.
holiday.
But what is your in the holidays, whether you celebrate Thanksgiving or Christmas, whatever it is that you celebrate, what is that dish, that you look forward to that comes out on special occasions, more focused towards the holiday? Do you have
Mm-hmm.
one?
I do. Okay, so um, and this is this is an emotional one for me because, like I said, I recently lost my mother. Well, last year. It's been a year. So, but it still feels so fresh and new because it all, like I said, it all happened at the same time. I lost my job, lost my mom within weeks of each other. And so last November, so she passed in August. So November was our first Thanksgiving without our mom. And so, and then my dad had passed. They passed on the same day, 7 years apart.
Wow.
So we um, so holidays are a big thing in my family. There, I have four siblings. We're all a really close family. We have like 30 nieces and nephews. And so we have a really large family. And Thanksgiving is the one holiday that we all come together. And so my mother would make it's called, so some people have stuffing, it depends. Some people have stuffing, some people have dressing. It just depends on, you know,
Right.
what you do with it, what you do with it. Do you stuff the turkey? Do you have that type of stuffing, or do you make it side and dressing and all the different ways? And so we have dressing in my family, and it we only have it on the holidays. We only have it on Thanksgiving. Like no one makes dressing like throughout the year. Like no one in my family does. Like I was just telling someone the other day, like if I feel like I want some dressing, like in the middle of the year, I'm just gonna go buy some stovetop dressing, like a box, and I'm just gonna have that because I don't, for some reason, I'm not going to make dressing, or now I'm missing my mom's dressing, right? And so she didn't, she, of course, she's no longer here to make the dressing. My sister has adopted they're adapted the recipe, so she makes it. So I'm gonna make it this year for my family. So it's something that we all look forward to. We only get it like once a year. And so I'm really excited to have it, and we're gonna do it this year. But I'm gonna put I'm gonna put a twist on it. It's gonna be a little different. So I'm exploring some different ways to do it. So that's part of our new traditions that we're having now, that our dynamic of our family has changed a bit. So my part of that is I'm going to put a spin on the dressing.
Love it.
I love that. I love that. And it is emotional. Like food is comfort, food is connection, food is family, like there's certain things that I eat that immediately take me back to my dad, or with my mom. My mom's still alive, and but she lives in another place. And so there are like certain things when I'm with my mom, I'm like, Mom, can you make this for me? And it's like the one thing that I always ask my mom to make for me is, I know this is gonna sound crazy, potatoes and hot dogs. It's such a struggle meal, and it is so comforting. And I can make potatoes and hot dogs. Or when we're feeling fancy, we use kielbasa, the smoked sausage. But my mom just makes it better. She just makes it better. So that's like the thing that when I see my mom, I'm always like, you already know what's up, old lady. Get in the kitchen and get to work.
I love it.
Um, but this year, so I have to just tell a little bit about Fakesgiving. So as my kids got older, and like our family's all spread apart, um, it was really hard for people to get together on Thanksgiving Day. And I love to cook. That's one of my favorite things, is I love to cook. And when I mean, I go all out. I am extra, like super extra. On Saturday, I got called an overachiever. I don't know how many times I was referred to as the overachiever, but I took it as a badge of honor. I loved it. So because I live in Mexico now, like traditionally, what we started to do is I made Fakesgiving on Veterans Day weekend, because it allowed people an extra day of travel, because you had Veterans Day off. And so people could like plan a long weekend. The travel was easier so that you didn't have to sit in Thanksgiving Day traffic. And then my kids and stuff had their whole Thanksgiving Day to spend with their new friends and family, and like places that they didn't have to like, do I go to mom's or do I, go with my friends? So it's a fake holiday completely made up. And traditionally I make Thanksgiving food, and I mean, it takes me 3 days and we have like this whole spread. But now that I live in Mexico, I don't have like the same access to ingredients. So this time I did I did a ceviche bar with three different kinds of ceviche. I did mole, two ways, with chicken and rice. I did a sweet one and a spicy one. And then we have a pizza oven. So we were doing homemade pizzas. And I will tell you, we had about 30 people, and I fed everybody, and they were all just like, you're the best host ever. And I said, that's right, recognize. So my identity as the hostess with the mostest, they were like, you made this pizza dough from scratch? Of course I did. And you made these tortillas from scratch? Yes. But what I loved about Thanksgiving, like what I loved about it the most this time is that I literally invited everybody. I invited people I had met 2 days before. I invited the people who cut my hair. I invited the person who cleans my house. I invited the people who work at the brewery. I invited, the Canadians. We had all of North America was represented hardcore, let me tell you. And what I loved the most about it, everybody was comfortable. Everybody was talking to each other. Everybody was eating. People were trying foods they'd never had before. It was such a beautiful, beautiful day. It was the best fix. It's the best Thanksgiving since the last one I had when my dad was alive. That was the best Thanksgiving, but this is definitely the second best one. It was pretty awesome.
I love that.
Very cool.
Yeah. So
I love
it's a
that.
vibe.
It's my
Thanksgiving is a vibe. So, Coy, if you're around San Felipe next year, Thanksgiving, we're doing an Italian theme. We've already started planning for next year. We're
Oh
doing Italian
wow.
food. So we'll
I
do some
love
homemade
it.
pastas and all kinds of fun stuff. It'll be a good time.
I love it. Hey, we love a good travel. And I love
Yeah.
traveling for the holidays. So yeah.
Well,
Might take you up on that.
I would
And
love it. I would love it.
and I'm a
Carl, what
dressing
about
person.
you?
Yeah,
You're
my grandma
dressing?
was a my grandma used to make this oyster dressing with olives, and I remember growing up as a kid on Thanksgiving breaking up pieces of toast, right? And just breaking a piece of toast into a brown paper bag that she would collect. So I mean, so I just and my mom makes it, but she hasn't made it in a while, and so I need to get the recipe, and I want to make it. I don't think anybody else in the family needs will eat it, but I could care less, right? So but no, my grandma, and she used, she made food for an army, right? So she would had this huge cast iron stove, skillet, and she would brown the stuffing in there, and then she would put it away, and we would have stuffing for leftovers for 3 months,
Oh,
and it was just, yeah. So it was, I was just, so anyways, yeah, that's my first thought in my head there for sure. So yeah. So Coy, where can we find you?
where can you find me?
Yes.
Like today, I'm gonna I need to decompress. So I blocked my entire day, so you can't find me anywhere today. Because I'm an introvert. I need to recharge for the entire day.
Right, right. Yeah.
So you
But
won't
no,
find me anywhere today.
yeah.
Um, yeah, so I'm pretty active on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So if you ever want to connect with me on LinkedIn, it's Coy Rivers. So it was LinkedIn's / Coy Rivers, KoiRivers. So I'm pretty active there. I respond to every message that I get. And then you can always reach me on my website. That's Movement. It's Movemeant, movement.com. If you want to know more about what I do, why I do it, who I am, all of that is there. So those are the two main places that if you want to know more about what I'm doing and kind of how I'm showing up, those are the main places to do it. But I would say LinkedIn for sure.
Very cool. Well, thank you for getting proximate with us today. And we definitely appreciate you. And we're so glad that you're able to join us and that you said yes. Folks, this is her first podcast. Can you believe it? She seems like a veterano around here. I mean, so,
Mhm.
but yeah, we're really fortunate that you did that. And we hope to have you back sometime to have some more conversations. So,
Thank you. I really do appreciate it for you extending the offer and really opening the door to have this type of conversation, which is I think very needed, very relevant right now, very timely, but very important. So I thank you for that and for letting me extend my POV on this. So I appreciate it.
And in case nobody's told you lately, Coy, you are also a whole vibe. And it's a good one. You are whole inspiring.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I do know that yeah, I never put it that way. I don't know how I would put it, but I appreciate that. I
You have
appreciate
an energy. And we talked about this, and I know Carl said we had to recreate our moment, but we can't recreate our moment. But just for anybody who's wondering, I Coy and I went through the same coaching program. And when I met her, I think we were like paired together like very quickly.
it.
Um, I connected with her immediately. And I always like every time because we were always randomly paired up. Anytime I was in a group with Coy, I was like, yes. Like
Mhm.
super
Yeah.
excited to see her. So
Mhm.
I'm really glad that you spent this time with us, and I really appreciate it. And I was glad to catch up with you for sure.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. I will always answer the call.
All right. And until that call happens again, we have our own 6-word story, Corey, just so you know. It's actually an 8-word story, but if you split it in half, it works. But I'm Carl.
I'm Tiff.
Let's keep it
Keep it
real.
real.
See, 6 words. Mix it in there. Okay.
It
All right.
works. We're not good at